Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you have arrived to the conversation that'll end all conversations. The Soulcast with your host, Happy Bones. And now, without further ado, let's get in that crazy head. Here's Happy Bones.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We are on episode 20 of the Soulcast, and I am here today with my beautiful guest, Mr. Brian Allen, the one and only. He's here to promote his new project, Hound of Goshen, and we've both been running around in this scene for a long time. Our paths have crossed plenty of times, and he's been in a number of projects. I mean, like, how many bands have you been in anyway?
I don't know that I can. I don't think I can count them on two hands. Yeah, I mean, it's.
And you've played with some of the best musicians in town too. It's pretty cool.
I like to think so. I've been blessed to play with some folks that. I've been blessed to play with some folks that I consider.
You can't hardly read it on the camera anyway.
That's fine.
But I'll put it really close. See.
We have stickers.
Got me some stickers. He said he's going to make some T-shirts. You just got to hold your horses for a minute, okay? So how'd you come up with that name, Hound of Goshen, anyway?
That's a South Carolina ghost story, actually.
Oh, no shit.
It's a 150-year-old ghost story from area around Newberry. And as the story goes, there was a wandering peddler who drifted through that town, and it just so happened that during the short period of time he was there, someone was murdered, and they just automatically pinned it on him. He was unjustly hung, but he had a big white dog that was traveling with him, and the dog, when they hung him, the dog wouldn't leave his side. It starved to death. And there's a stretch of road right near where that happened, and people started seeing the specter of this enormous dog appear on certain nights or whatever and scare the shit out of people.
What? That's crazy.
And and strangely enough, talking to some friends that live in like Batesburg, there are similar sorts of legends. And I forget, there's actually a name for it or whatever, but of these large white furry animals, doggish, bearish, or whatever, that will accompany you when you're walking alone down these country back roads at night. And the story he told me was that if you're pure of heart, it'll just keep you company and make sure you're safe. But if you're a bad person, it'll devour you.
No kidding. Oh man, that's crazy.
So yeah, I mean,
I like stories like that.
That's a cool story. The Hound of Goshen story is really neat. People have gone and tried to.
And what area is that?
It's Newberry. So
Newberry.
Yeah. There's a we have a Goshen Plantation here, but there's a Goshen Plantation Hill or something is where the guy was hung, right around that area, and people have seen that. There have been reports as recently, I think the last time was in the mid-'90s.
So what made you want to connect that with the band?
Well, it's just kind of the flavor of what we were trying to do with it. It's obviously that Southern Gothic is all hell,
Yeah.
and the underbelly of the South really intrigues me. And the whole when we started up this band, we had all been in these loud-ass rock bands. Every single one of us had all been in these loudest rock bands for years, and we wanted to sort of quiet it down and kind of get in the cracks a little bit, pay attention to acoustic songcraft, and just really kind of dig out some of that Southern flavor,
right?
Without saying shit like pickup trucks and the bullshit that's going on country radio right now. So
right.
Without an eye toward being, necessarily straight up country, we're all rock and rollers at heart.
So it's more like Americana.
But we're Americana. Yeah. It was
Okay.
And storytelling,
right.
know? So there's a story right there, right off the bat.
That is cool. That is cool. I like that a lot. And it's weird because just recently I was with some friends and we were riding down. We were coming back from Savannah and we came through Carolina, and we were going down this road. I can't remember the name of the road, but I mean it goes through. It goes right there through Bath around where you go to cut off to go towards Jackson. It's right there. I can't remember the name of the road. Anyway, it's a famous road. But they were claiming, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, we were riding back. They claimed that they saw a ghost on the side of the road, and then they said they saw like a zombie lady on the side of the road. And then we looked it up, and it turns out there's a story about a lady that walks up and down that part of the street. And I was blown away. I was like, I totally thought y'all were full of shit because it's the craziest shit.
I fully listen. I fully believe that whenever there's some sort of occurrence that involves, well, especially any kind of sort of traumatic event or whatever, that the energy of the person was there. There's such an explosion when something really horrible happens. There's such an explosion of energy, and everyone concerned who's there to witness that event. Right. Maybe some of that energy sticks around,
Yeah, I believe that too. I had a friend that was really, really into this, and she showed me how, like, people that have their arms amputated from an accident or whatever, if they have this machine that can read electrical pulses, and the electrical pulses are still being sent to all the way through the limb. Yeah, so your brain is still sending the electrical pulses whether there's a limb there or not. And even plants do it. Like, you can cut a leaf in half and it's still sending the pulses to the other half of the leaf.
It's amazing shit, dude.
So, like, why wouldn't it be possible for that energy to linger in a place, an ethereal place, without something physical?
Listen, man, it's clear that happens. All you have to do is, and you can point to science and it'll tell you. The law of matter and energy says that matter is neither created nor destroyed. It merely changes forms.
Right.
So, what you're talking about with the amputees and stuff, that's why they have phantom limb. They still feel
still feel the pain, and they still feel like their hand will be asleep, and they don't have a hand.
Nuts, dude.
Who all was in the band?
All right, well, my wife, Tracy Allen, is playing bass.
Far out.
In this group. And listen, let me... all right, well, I'll run down who's in it, and then I'll tell you the whole concept. Because it really was, this has been a real different kind of adventure for me and for everybody involved. So Tracy's playing bass, and my great good friend Chris Livingston is playing guitar.
Cool.
Along with me. I stepped over to guitar as well. Chris is playing some mandolin also, and and after we sort of got it up and started workshopping the project. It became clear that some sort of rhythm was desired. And while we didn't want to full band it out, I mean, we're not a string band, you know what I'm saying? Like, every little punk rock kid in the universe is doing this string band shit, which is kind of disingenuous to me. But it's acoustic, man. But we needed a beat. You got to have a beat. Mm-hmm. And so we got Mark Janusek, who used to play in Cameras, Guns, and Radios.
Yeah.
And he's playing percussion and primarily cajon, which is an amazing fucking instrument.
It really is. It's crazy.
And that all came together really good. And the whole idea was to, what we wanted to do was, and anybody who goes to see more than 3 or 4 shows is going to get tired of hearing me say this, but what we wanted to do was get stupidly uncomfortable, to try and learn how to do some things. It's easy to fall back on the stuff that you already know that you're good at and you can lean on and get by with, but we wanted to try and each of us grow as musicians. So we all made an attempt to step out of our comfort zones. For me personally, it was moving from I've been a drummer for over 30 years.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and to step over to guitar, and try and get better at that, and at writing songs, and vocal melody, coming up with vocal melodies. For Tracy, as she's been playing, her bass style has always been this busy, constant walking
Like Joe Bone.
kind of thing, and
Yeah.
and then so for her it was try to slow down and play these more traditional
Root notes.
these structures and learn how to work with the space as
Yeah.
you're trying to fill up every moment.
Right.
For Chris, it was step into the wheel because we all sing lead. Was step into the mic and singing lead, and becoming more adept himself at playing acoustic guitar. He's a great electric guitarist as a really sort of bluesy rock and roll influences.
Yeah.
So this is all been Mark's the only one who's not sacrificing anything because
Chris is the one that was playing with Chris and Daddy, right? Was that the same guy or was it a different guy?
no, I think it's different. Mark Janisek has been playing with Chris and Daddy, accompanying her on Cajon when they play it like somewhere in Augusta.
I'm getting y'all mixed up. I love the Cajon too.
Chris's pedigree is Chris has been in a few bands with me. He was in 48 Volt, where he was basically the leader of that band. In 48 Volt, and then the most recent project we came off of was Jessup Dolly, which had a pretty good run there for a while.
Yeah. I remember Nito Torpedo.
So do I. How could I forget?
I always thought it was cool, that name, Nito Torpedo.
That name was suggested to us by this cat named Brian Browning was the original bass player for Nito Torpedo, and probably the only reason that the band ever came to exist was that he had an older brother, John Browning, who was in one of the when I was in high school at Davidson Fine Arts, when I very first started seeing flyers being circulated for original bands, because this was the cover band town from the mid '70s to the mid '80s, and then when I very first started seeing these flyers circulate for these bands, the Fungos, Inspected by 12, the Crawling Pigs, I'm like, what the fuck is this? And as it turns out, Brian Brownlee's older brother, John, was heavily involved in what was basically the genesis of our sort of indie music scene here locally.
Right.
And it's one of those good big brothers to have, where because he's got all the fucking import vinyl and punk rock records and has all these all the magazines.
Yeah.
He kind of was in touch with what was
Not
going on.
Not just a musician, but a student of music. Yeah.
Of in particular that
niche.
that do-it-yourself ethos that was kind of springing up at the time.
Yeah.
You could tour the country in the 80s until Nirvana hit. You could tour the country, totally DIY, and there was this whole network built up and all these indie labels and shit. But so the name Nito Torpedo was suggested to Brian Brownlee by his older brother. We're like, fuck it, we don't have anything better, so let's go with that.
Well, it rolls off the tongue, and it continues to do so to this day. We're going to take a short pause. I'm going to thank some of my sponsors real quick. Tracer Audio. Go to traceraudio.com for all your Tracer audio needs and production needs. Also, Butch Palmer for making me look silky smooth and sexy. You know what I'm saying? It's not a hard job, but he works at it. You know what I'm saying? And we'll be right back.